So today is an incredibly special day. I am so excited to be here with Rachel Tuller, VP Global Channel Sales, Autodesk. Rachel, I have followed your journey for a couple years now, and I am over the moon that we are here to have a really amazing conversation today.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here, Sheryl.
Yeah, so I can't think of anyone that's better to have a conversation about getting up to speed fast in a new executive role than you. You've already accomplished so many amazing things at such a wonderful company, Autodesk. But before we jump into just how you've done some of these amazing things in such a short amount of time, I thought I would ask a couple questions and get to know you a little bit better.
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Well, were there any, you know, people or situations that really inspired you in the area of channel sales? And not just that, but, was it a circuitous route? Was it straight from A to B? What or who inspired you to just ascend to where you've gotten to today?
Well, in channel sales specifically, I'll come to that. But I think in general, I come from a long line of working women, right? Professional women. Both of my grandmothers ran their own businesses after my grandfathers both passed away. Coincidentally, my grandmothers took over the business and kept going. And then my mom was one of the first women real estate brokers in all of Canada, and she built a very
Wow.
successful business there. And so it's just in my genes, right, to be a fearless female, for lack of a better word. And but I didn't know what that was going to look like in my life. I just knew that I wanted to do something, that was impactful. And even back then, defining impactful, I think was difficult for me because I thought that like climbing the ladder, making money, doing all that kind of stuff was super impactful. And I realized somewhere along the way that it's about helping others. And so now I'm at a point in my career where, yes, I get to have fun and make money, but at the same time, I'm helping others along the way. And that's where really I get excited about.
Yeah.
As far as a channel leader, I think there's a gentleman named James Mundell who I worked for at Beam, and he put me in a channel role there that wasn't sales. He took a shot on me and brought me inside. And then I realized, wow, I really need to round out my career. There's so much more to channel than just, sales. I want to learn all this stuff. And he really encouraged and inspired me to kind of take my career from there.
Mm. Isn't that amazing to reflect on the importance of other people's words, and to be really mindful of that as leaders because probably has the power to, spur people to greatness or kind of stop them dead in their tracks. And so I'm really grateful that you had such an inspiring, I was going to say ally, but he's really a champion.
Yeah, he definitely was.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And so was it a clear trajectory from A to B? Did you just rocket ship right up to, all of your amazing roles that you've had leading up to Autodesk and now? Or was it a circuitous path and have a couple maybe road bumps along the way?
My career path looks like one of those hurricane models,
Yeah.
with the spaghetti trails, right? For
Yeah.
sure. And I'm often, when I'm speaking to groups of younger women, I often say, look, or men, right? My career path has been a lattice, not a ladder. It has not been a straight up climb. It has not been very organized and well thought out. It has been opportunistic. It has been sometimes some good news and bad news, how I took other roles. But I actually started on the technical side of things as a technical trainer. And so I got my start in IT. This was not my degree. I didn't know I was going to be in IT. It was like a part-time job while I figured out what I wanted to do with my life when I was about 19. And a friend of mine had a software training business in Toronto. And I just started filling in there. And then I became a trainer. Then I loved the technology. I became a network engineer. I pulled cable back when networking was cool, and then kind of evolved from there. Figured out I made more money in sales, and then eventually figured out that partners were the way to go. I loved the influence and the partnership and the relationships. That's totally part of my DNA. And I think that's why I've been successful in channels over the years.
That's so interesting. And I really want to highlight too the crossover. I'm thinking, it makes me think a little bit about my daughter who's 24 and she's super interested in, people and HR, but she's like, I haven't really had experience there. And I'm like, no, the crossover. crossover experience. So if you're someone, who's listening and really thinking about what do you love, or if you want to pivot, what do you have that is really crossover experience, even if it's not direct experience. I love that.
That is so true. Transferable skills, taking them from one role to another, I think is super critical. And it took working with a coach and working with someone like yourself to really help me pull that out, probably about 10 years ago, because I was looking for a pivot, a career change. I had been let go. I was like, do I start my own business? I mean, a lot of my best things happen from like really crappy situations. So for those of you in a crappy situation right now, understand that things will get better. Over time, the peaks and valleys of my life and my career have kind of mellowed a little bit. So I'm no longer on the big scary roller coaster, but more like the kiddie coaster. And I can navigate those peaks and valleys a little bit better with the experience and maturity that I have. But, making those decisions and trying to figure out, what do I have to offer? Sometimes looking in the mirror wasn't the easiest. It was helpful to have someone help me go through that process.
Yeah, and something that was told to me, actually, I just learned this about 5 years ago, was that a coach is someone, it's like a coach from the, horse and buggy days. It's someone to help transport you from one place to the other. And so I thought that was really interesting. And sometimes it just takes someone to push us either out into the deep end or the cold water, or the, hey, you love this, you can do this, you can do it, here's how to do it. So, and also a common thread that after either interviewing or working with amazing female executives such as yourself, is they just go. Even if they may have imposter syndrome, they may think they're not ready, but when the door opens,
Just
they
go.
just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go and learn
And
along
I
the
think
way.
that's where the fearless comes in. And I love, the title of this, because for me, it really, there's the whole saying, feel the fear and do it anyways. And it's not that I've never been afraid of anything or terrified or afraid I would get found out or afraid I couldn't do the job. I had all those things, but it was moving through that, right? And understanding and coming out the other side of it. And I think over the years, I just built up a confidence that, like a quiet confidence that, okay, I know this much. I might not know, 100% of everything, but I know 80 or I know 70, right? And I'm going to go from there. And I think, we've often heard as women, we want to know 110% before we
Yeah,
take the leap. And you know what? You just can't do that.
yeah,
You won't get as far faster. You can still get there, but it'll just take a little longer.
yeah. So maybe I'm saying like 3 to 5 boxes, you should be good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Not 8, not 8, like the research said. So, okay, well, as a woman in technology, that I'm not gonna guess, well, I don't know. You might be, we're probably similar ages, so I'm not gonna say how long you've been a woman in technology, but, um, what has been the mindset that has allowed you, or really, you know, put you on the rocket ship to where you are now? Because it's probably a little bit different now than it used to be. Not different enough,
Yeah.
but it's safe to say that you've probably been the only or the double only or something for a long time. So what's been the mindset that's really helped you reach your level of leadership?
It's interesting. Even in today's day and age, I'm the only female leader on my boss's team. So back to the beginning, when I started, I was the only woman in the field pulling cable in a truck full of guys heading out, to a networking situation, or, doing something like that, or the only one at the golf outing that was teeing off from the red tees. Like, that's kind of the story of my life. But I came to terms with it, and I actually used it to my advantage in that, I didn't there was a time when I felt like I had to keep up with the boys. And then I realized, okay, that's dumb. Be the woman, right? Be the leader, be the person, be the one that stands out. And so instead of trying to fit in with everybody else, I really started to. Now I was well into my 40s by the time I started to carve my own path. I almost wish I'd have learned that sooner, but I think I had to
Mhm.
get through the things I had to get to before I came to that realization. But just being able to learn what I had, right? The skills that I had and the knowledge and experience. It's funny because you've said rocket ship a couple times, and I feel like my career has been more like one big C-130. Like it's
Oh
been
yeah.
a long, slow journey with a lot of stuff inside, a lot of cargo and baggage. But at the same time, definitely making an impact. So I think it's been very exciting for me to recognize and kind of come into my own and mature as a female and as a leader in the business, but not without its uncomfortable situations or times when I, wished I wasn't in the room when certain conversations were happening. And we've all kind of been there, but my experience has just been like, you put on your big girl panties and you show up and you do the job the best you can, because performance outweighs gender every day of the week.
Yeah, I think that's a quote. Okay, my team's definitely pulling that quote out. Um, yeah, I love that. And so when you were talking, it reminds me of I had the honor of being a speaker with Sheryl Cook, who is you probably know her at Dell and at Women of the Channel in New York City, and she was like in a hot pink suit. And before I even knew who she was, I'm like, "Whoa, that is a bright suit." And I actually had a conversation with her, and she's like, "No, I'm a girly girl."
Yeah,
She's like,
absolutely.
"I'm gonna, like, own it." And she is, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but badass.
She is. She
Um,
is. And I was at
uh,
that meeting and I took a picture and I snapped it and sent it to my 19-year-old daughter and was like, this is someone who like is owning her position in this world.
yeah, so, oh my gosh, I'm sad that I did not know that you were at that conference. But yeah, yeah, she's amazing. So I love what you said, to just, you know, own your capability, own your worth, and just do an amazing job and be yourself and be authentic. So I'd like to switch gears and really jump into the important topic, especially now. We were talking before we went live that there's a lot of movement going on in organizations right now. And there's also a great importance of, especially, excuse me, in an executive role, to hit the ground running, get up to speed fast. And
Yeah.
so I'm really excited to talk to you about um, how you've done this, because you're really walking the walk here. And like, like I said, there's nobody better to talk about this now. So can you shed a little light on how long, well, first of all, how you got to Autodesk? I mean, that was an amazing story, and the competition. I mean, that was really your Olympics to get there in the first place. And then what transpired, and how did you have such an amazing impact at the beginning of your time there?
Yeah, that's great. So, two things. One, I am experienced at starting new jobs because I have not had the luxury of, staying at the same company for 20, 25, 35 years. I've worked for, some of the larger organizations, but inside channels, the turnover is pretty high. So you move to different roles. Also, I've been with smaller organizations throughout my career. So in order to move up or move across, I often had to move out. And so I kind of became a pro at getting integrated early, like into the organization, understanding the culture. At an executive level, it's a little bit different. Obviously, the expectations are pretty heavy. But I will say, going through the process with Autodesk was arduous, but well worth it. It taught me a lot about the company. It taught me a lot about the culture. I did have multiple other companies that I was interviewing with at the same time. It was literally a marathon. I think I had 46 interviews between January 2nd and when I started on May 13th. That was a full-time job. And I think for anybody who's in that situation right now, you can't work 8, 10, 12 hours a day at it. You will drive yourself crazy, but you do have to work every day at it. And you do have to show up and suit up and treat it like a job. Getting a job is a job. And so I really put my best foot forward. And throughout the process, I just kept thinking, get to the next step, right? I wasn't attached to the outcome. I didn't know if I was going to get offers from all three of these companies. I didn't know what the outcomes would be. And in each case, I came down to the final two candidates in each one, which I'm just blessed because so many friends, and colleagues are still looking, which is hard. For me, but at the same time, I did the work, right? And I put in the effort and the time and I showed up. One of the things that I think helped me get going with this was really doing my research about the company. I'm not a researcher. It's not my strength.
Mhm.
I'm a people person. I would love to talk to you and learn that way, but I watch videos, I read websites, I learned about the products. I did a lot ahead of time and I learned that Autodesk had this really unique culture. And I thought this could be really interesting. Like, how do they know if I'm going to be a culture fit? And in the end, it's a two-way interview, right? I had to make sure it was the right company for me, that, as I get to this kind of last third of my life or last I could have retired, but I didn't want to. I'm not ready to retire yet. And at the same time, this could technically be my last, big role. So what did I want out of that? And I did a lot of that soul searching, during the process, and having a long process from January 2nd till May, 6 months, allowed me to really dig into that and answer those questions inside myself that I had. So that was
Mhm.
kind of all about getting the role.
Mhm.
Once I got it, I feel very lucky that there was not a lot of pressure from the organization. Like because of their culture, they're very like, take your time, 30, 60, 90 days. And I'm like, is it really 90 days or is it like 2 weeks? And they're like, no, it's 90 days. Like, take your time. I didn't have to present back out to my leadership and his team until, well, I was like 120 days in. And so that was a luxury for me. And what I did three things. I focused on the people, right? I wanted to get to know the people, the partners, and the programs, what I was going to be dealing with. So I got on the road. And I think some of the best conversations that I had, I actually circumnavigated the earth 3 times. I was fortunate to have the budget to be able to do that. But, through some other situations, some funding became available. I'm like, fine, I'm going to hit the road. And I basically said to my husband, look, I'm willing to keep up this schedule for a period of time, but I know that I can't sustain this. But it was so worth it to get out there and have those face-to-face conversations with our teams, with my peers, with my people that work with me, and then also my partners. And understanding, what were the really golden nuggets about Autodesk that, don't touch that because that's what makes it magic here. And then other things where we could really, have an impact. But I think, again, being a relationship person, that's what I really leveraged the first time around. And I asked a lot of questions.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know that you had talk about a marathon. I think your travel schedule was like running a marathon, but then turning around and running home. So that's amazing. So it seems like then really connecting and listening and asking questions and deepening those relationships and also getting up to speed fast seems like it's important to connect and build trust fast.
It really is. And Autodesk's philosophy is around being a trusted partner to our customers. And they embody that throughout the whole organization with each other, as peers and colleagues, with our partners, with our customers. And so I think there was an understanding that it was important for me to build that trust early and often, and just establishing myself, with some credibility, asking the right questions that maybe, people that have been here there 25 years hadn't really thought of, or, talking about the new cloud platform world was new for us. So just being able to lend a little bit of my experience through asking questions that also helped establish trust and credibility that I know what I'm talking about. I don't know everything. I have so much to learn. Autodesk is a very complex business, but I know channels and I know partners. And so really, I think if I know that, it's just a matter of adapting. So my current tagline is align, adapt, and accelerate.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. I might steal that. Um, and so you're talking about aligning and building trust and deepening relationships with partners and people. And what about with leadership? What about with, Andrew and all of his, CXO team? What do you think is most important when you get to a new company and how to establish trust with them?
I think just being part of, showing up, being invited to the meetings and making sure that you have a seat at the table. And, my goal here, and what I was told by my boss, is we don't want you to just have a seat at the table. We want you to have a voice here too. And that expectation was set from the top down. And that's a luxury, right? We don't always get that opportunity as channel leaders to have that seat and that voice. And so I'm not taking that for granted. And I'm making sure that when I do ask the right questions, when I speak, it's very thoughtful and it's very conscious that there's an amazing business that they've built there. I'm not coming in to tell somebody their baby's ugly, although they do see me as a transformational hire, right? To bring a lot of change and transformation. That's why I was brought in to do that. But it's a real balance. So it's like, let's understand current state first. Let's understand, I know where you want to go. That was clearly articulated during the interview process, but it's going to be a process to get there. And so I think setting expectations early, that I'm not going to come in and wave a magic wand and things are going to be different. There's a lot of folks that have been doing a lot of things for a long time, and being able to really be respectful of that and understand that, you're not going to come in and tell somebody their baby's ugly and they have to change things.
Mhm.
That's not a good foot to get off on with people.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. That seems super important. And so, sometimes there can be a fine line between, you're hired to be a transformational leader, but you're also the new kid at school. So, can you offer any advice on how to maneuver that so, you can have a voice, have an impact, and not, I guess there's no way to tiptoe around it, but not put your role at jeopardy?
Right, right. So as I was presenting to my peers, right, my observations and my plans, because we're in the throes of next fiscal planning as well. So I did have to get up to speed pretty quickly on the business and build a plan for next year in my first 100 days. So that was fun, and I wanted to include them in the conversation. I have peers in each geo that are the geo leaders, and I'm a kind of a functional leader, I guess you could say. And so my team is accountable to them. My number's their number. We have shared goals, shared KPIs. And so I wanted them to be involved and included in my plans, but not to the point of asking for permission. And I think that was some feedback that I got during my presentation. Our HR leader, who's dying to have much more, strong female leaders at the helm, she said, "Oh my God, you did such a great job. But you asked if they liked it like one or too many times." And I thought that was really great feedback, because it's my nature to be collaborative. And I thought I was being collaborative and inclusive, and someone else saw it as being conciliatory, right? Or not, maybe kowtowing to them. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting perspective here. I thought I was building bridges. And she said, you need to build that bridge and then you need to march right across it. And so
Oh,
I thought that was great feedback from somebody who is part of the hiring process. And that's why they brought me to come in. So I'll be doing a little more marching in the next few weeks.
yeah. So then, really own it. Like you can build trust, be collaborative, but then because it seems like it's just based in what I know about the psychology of influence. So if we are, only 7% of what we say is, perceived by people. The rest is our body language and how we hold ourselves, cadence of our voice. And so really owning it in the first 100 days, but finding that fine, delicate balance of bringing your expertise
Mhm.
and being collaborative, but then being confident as well.
Exactly. And I think that balance is what I've actually, I kind of feel pretty good about it. I do think there's times that I've started jobs before and I've come in head first, bull in a china
Mhm.
shop. And then there's other times where I've waited too long to act. And then, circumstances changed or things change within the organization. And I missed a window to make some really opportune change. And I do think that this is a really great balance of the two, right?
Mhm.
It's a good fit.
Yeah. So if you were giving your best friend advice who just got a new executive role, or really any role, because I'm thinking that what you're talking about is very obviously applicable to a new executive role. But I guess this is a two-pronged question. One is, what is really specific to getting up to speed fast and in an executive role versus another type of role?
Okay.
And what is one thing that you would like to leave the listeners with that could really help them get up to speed fast?
I think one of the first places I started was with a stakeholder map. So I've been doing alliance selling, partner selling for a really long time. And when you're dealing with a global alliance, you do a stakeholder map. Who's your champion? Who's your peers? Who's your supporters? Who's your, naysayers? And you figure out who's who in the zoo. And, you're going to have to find a couple people internally right away to help you with that, because you're not going to be able to obviously know right away. And I set out a stakeholder map and I set out to meet all those people. And I said, okay, here's my peers and my collaborators. Here's the ones who I really need to have on my side and I need to win over. Here's ones that are going to have tremendous influence over my success down the road that I have dependencies on. And I literally mapped it out and set a plan to go do that. It wasn't ad hoc like it's been in the past for me. And I think that's what's been able for me to get up to speed quickly in an executive role is really the key differentiator. And that's having a plan and working the plan. And it sounds trite. It sounds like, well, duh, doesn't everybody do that? But the reality is, this is only the second time I've ever done it, and I've had a lot of roles. So I think it is something that was really helpful in this case. And building those executive relationships, even if it's just touch points, introduce myself. Here's why I think I'm here. Why do you think I'm here? Right? And getting people's understanding of what the expectations are for the role and understanding for me how different that was throughout the organization. It was not a consistent story about why I was here and what I was expected to do. So coming to terms with that and then reconciling that with my leadership was actually important. And then I could turn it back around and articulate, okay, this is why I'm here. And, that's maybe not why I'm here. And to be
Mhm.
really clear on that moving forward.
Yeah, so I love that. Have a plan, work the plan, and also it sounds very communicative and very explicit about this is my interpretation. This is how I can help you. This is how why I got hired in the organization because a lot of times those things go unsaid.
Mhm.
And so there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that disconnect takes some undoing. So you
There's
heard
an
it from, go
Oh, sorry.
ahead.
And there's an author, Michael, can't think of his name, but The First 90 Days. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that, but I read it like, I don't know, 15 years ago when it was first published. And somebody told me about it. So I went and got like the short version because I don't have time to read a book right now. And I listened to a couple podcasts. And some of that I did naturally, like what you do in your first 90 days and communicating and everything else. And then other things, I took some really good tips from that. So I think it's just find the resources, that you think are going to be helpful to you, working with coaches like yourself. I'm part of a female leaders organization in chief, and just leveraging the resources that I have and collecting information from others on, what did they do? What worked? Don't be afraid to ask.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that so much. So have a plan, work the plan, and don't forget to leverage the resources that you have. Rachel, these have been gold nuggets of wisdom for how executives and probably just about anybody can get up to speed fast in a new role. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm really excited to follow your amazing leadership journey.
Thanks, Cheryl. It's my pleasure.